Hi, my name is Israel Vasquitelli, and welcome to the TurnTable, a roundtable discussion featuring entertainment and music business students, artists, and anyone with a vested interest in the music industry. And today we have some amazing guests. Starting on my left, I want to introduce a killer frontman by the name of Angel Graves from a band by the name of
Devil's Envy.
Devil's Envy. Now that's a killer name. And we also have somebody that I respect a lot. She is a music industry veteran with plenty of experience both in the live space, also in music retail and marketing. Shelly O, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And we have a multifaceted guest over here, Alex Knight. And Alex is an educator, he's a musician, and he's also the producer of a web series about the music industry.
Yep.
And it's called?
The Lost Weekend.
The Lost Weekend. Awesome. So I would love to get everybody's perspective on different aspects of our topic this episode, and that is awareness, building awareness, how artists build awareness. And that could also mean discovery. So maybe even from the perspective of being a music fan, and we're all music fans, how you discover new music. So let's go ahead and start with streaming. So talk to me about your perspective on the discovery of artists via streaming. Either someone like yourself, maybe that you've had some experience in that space and have found fans in that space, or maybe as a music fan, actually finding someone that is pretty amazing through streaming platforms. Why don't we start over here?
Well, streaming, it's been around for a bit. A lot of the bigger artists that I look up to, Metallica, Avenged Sevenfold, they have a very detailed structure of how they want to go about streaming their music. Whether it's you have Apple Music, you open your phone and boom, a notification comes up, tells you, hey, this artist just released this new record or this new single. And it's definitely has, I guess, increased in awareness as far as putting it in front of your listeners, even potential listeners. And apps like Spotify and Apple Music have a really good captivation mode on it. So whether sending notifications out to let your fans know, as well as people that might like it, in the similar genre.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Devil's Envy. I know you guys have been on some playlists.
Right.
Talk to me about how you have put that together, and also have you found that's kind of brought you new fans?
It has. We try to go the professional route, getting a good a PR agent to, help push us in certain areas that maybe we didn't think of. And, they were great about, pitching us to certain playlists, whether it was on Apple Music. I believe Spotify does playlists as well. Tidal does as well too, and they're more based in France. But putting us in front of different listeners that might love a certain band, it's you know what, this band is on this playlist, I'm just gonna follow that. And they were really good at putting us, in the mix with everyone else, and we got listeners from all over the world. It's really good that way. But just at least to put you on with different artists that you've never even heard of, and then you learn from them too.
Indeed. And that's mostly been on Spotify?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So what do you folks think?
That seems to kind of be at least in my experience, has been sort of the new holy grail. Is getting featured on certain playlists. You were telling that story. Israel told a story to us earlier about a guy bursting into the radio station with weapons. It reminded me of the movie Airheads.
No, I never saw that.
I never saw that. I was like, nowadays that's you burst into trying to get on Spotify playlist.
Right.
Radio station. So it's kind of a different experience, but that recommendations from, oddly enough, algorithms is kind of how I find artists now.
Right.
The other thing I found is I know a lot of people. I was just talking to someone else about this, about listening to podcasts and interviews. And I found myself finding artists that I'll hear them in an interview first, and if I think they're interesting people, I'll go check out their music, and now I'm more connected to the music now.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, from the indie hip hop space, and that's kind of my world, for many years, I would say that is kind of interesting that platforms like SoundCloud, those that aren't necessarily subscription-based, AudioMac is still preferred for those people looking for, the hottest, newest kind of breaking artists, maybe before they get on Spotify, before they get on a list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole world is obviously physical retail, so streaming is like a four-letter word. But there are definitely advantages to finding new bands and new music on services like that. I mean, I use them just to listen, just to get new things in front of me. I mean, I have no shortage of that, but it's convenient. It's an easy way to find some new things, and and then if you listen to a couple songs and realize that you're into it, then guess what? That can translate into physical sales. I mean, people will listen to a couple tracks and be like, all right, I've got to have this on vinyl now because my friends are all coming over this weekend, and this will be a great album we can all check out together. And so I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can find out about music. But
And that's a great transition to the physical space, and I want to dig into music retail. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about the live space. And I know everyone here has plenty of experience in that arena, no pun intended. So let's talk about the discovery, specifically discovery of talent, maybe discovery for you, new fans finding you, maybe opening up. One of my favorite stories in that space has to do with Rage Against the Machine and going to see them open for a band, actually not going to see them, going to see a band they were opening for, and feeling kind of irritated when I found out that there was another opening act, and be like, oh, I hope that they're not going to take too long. And sure enough, it was Rage Against the Machine. Had never heard of them. They killed it, and I was an immediate fan, went out and bought the CD. And, the rest is history. So what do you folks think about that live environment for discovery? Not going to see somebody that you already know about, but discovering new talent. What do you think?
Well, I know this kind of goes with what you were saying, too, but, I look at, the streaming world as almost like the baited hook that you're dangling, but you've got to hook up. I mean, live performance is still where you hook people. If you're really going to translate someone into, a true long-term engaged fan, you've got to kill it live, or the physical product has to be worth them actually buying, because there's just so much you have to cut through in the streaming world that it's a very passive medium. You just oh, that was cool, I like that. You can skip it and you'll never think of it again. But if someone blows you away live, you got them.
That's right. And you never forget that. You never forget that live experience. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, there are records that I've listened to, new stuff, and from artists that I really love, and I'm like, oh, no, it's decent. But then when I see it live, I'm like, oh, I totally get it now.
It's interesting you mentioned that. Back 3 years ago, I was running front of house engineering for a band called From Ashes to New, and they were put on tour, just thrown on tour with the big dogs, with Papa Roach and Five Finger in this moment. And we were the baby band, the baby crew, everybody, it was just me and the rest of the band. But those guys brought it, they've gained lifelong fans. They're now on bus tours, all over the world, proud of them. But, it was that moment, where the front man, Matt, he was so passionate about it. It's we have to kill it live, if we want the majority of these fans to stick with us, then we have to, make sure we knock it out of the park. And that's always a great goal to have if you're a startup artist, going on all these support slots on tour. It's definitely something you want to keep in mind. It should be your main goal, to capturing as many as you can, being a support artist.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always remember, and I'm drawing a blank on exactly who it was once, but I remember putting on a show in a little venue and it not necessarily being well attended, and the artists just killed it. They just brought their A game, and afterwards we were talking, and he basically shared that kind of philosophy. I don't care if it's 5 people or if it's 100 people or 1,000 people, I have the same energy because I never know who's in the audience, and I always remember that.
So true.
So you were sharing a gem of a story. Unfortunately, we weren't on camera, but I'd love for you to maybe share it a little bit more, and it has to do with discovery, and it has to do with live performance and retail. So if you don't
All
mind,
tied
yeah, tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Oh, of course. Well, we were talking earlier. One of the great things about Park Ave CDs is we host live in-store performances with artists, and some of those are developing artists. I mean, we've definitely had the 1975 and Machine Gun Kelly, and we've had a few people that have rolled through too. But I just was in touch with someone who I'd worked with on a previous in-store. He had recommended a band that he had coming through town that are on their 5th album, but this is the first one released through a actual label, and they're really excited. The guys weren't playing anywhere in Orlando, and so we're excited to get them in the shop and hopefully get a good recording out of it that they can use to promote the album down the line. But yeah, the guys showed up. They live in Nashville. The band's called the Vagabonds, and they just had an album come out last week on Blue Elan. But yeah, their socials are not, they're just starting out. They don't have the power of all the social media. The label is a smaller label, but they're really driven. They've got a great album. They're a great band. They put on an insane performance. They blew it away. I mean, when they started, there were 0 people there to see them, but by the end of their half-hour set, we probably, any person that had walked in the store that night just to randomly shop, had their hands up in the air at the last song. Their last song, they played a song called "Partying with Strangers." And I think that kind of brought everybody. They kind of caught the vibe, But yeah, I mean, what started is like total Spinal Tap. Like we're like, Full Sail brings out this amazing production, and like they're basically playing on a rig that like they probably won't play in any of the venues. Like, sounds incredible, amazing, rolling everything out, getting closer to the start time, and like 1 or 2 people walking around the store. But you know what? They played like that store was packed, and they put on an awesome show and really drew from the people that did show up. And I think that we're really able to connect with people in that physical space. And yeah, by the end of it, like, everyone was super psyched. We sold more records than we thought we would.
Wow. And
honestly, like, I've had those songs stuck in my head for the last 2 weeks. Like, and I listen to a lot of different things, but yeah, it's really like truly ground level artist development there.
Right. And
yeah,
you never
I'm
forget
excited.
that.
No, and I know like the people that just randomly walked in that night were blown away. Like I feel like the next time they show up in the store, they might be a little disappointed if we're just playing like Madonna's Greatest Hits or something. But yeah, I mean, those guys like killed it, and there was no like, oh, should we wait a little bit? Should we wait for more people? It was just like, we're ready to do this. We are ready to put on a great show, and you know what, they did, and it really translated. Like anyone who was in there that night, and I'm sure that that's going to follow those guys with the rest of this touring. And yeah, it's just the philosophy. Like you can't be like, oh well, they're like, let's bring it, and they did. I mean, I thought I was listening to the Allman Brothers in there. It was crazy.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say that attitude, I think, is what's so important. Because even if you have an artist that has a social media following, like a big one, like what good does it do you if they're let down when they come to your live show, if you're acting like a diva or whatever? So yeah, just embracing like, hey, this is what we're dealt. Let's win over what we can while we're here, make friends and everything.
That's right.
That's a great philosophy, like you were saying.
So I won't look at you for an answer, but how many of us are fans of going to a record store, just kind of touching and feeling all awesome. So we're all on the same page. I'm always worried, but obviously vinyl has consistently grown over the past 10 or plus years, and you've been, ground zero for that. So have you noticed a lot of people, and I would imagine that's a thing, like you go in, you're looking for this specific artist, but you discover so much more while you're there, and what do you see in that space?
No, it's true. I mean, my gosh, I helped a girl one day at the store, and she was like, I can't believe you guys have all these calendars. And I was like, oh, honey, let me show you. show you the world here. But yeah, I think people think, you know, we definitely have so many SKUs. We're, you know, one of the only full service stores in Central Florida, so we carry tons of catalog on top of new releases and exclusive things like that. But yeah, I think people think they're gonna pop in and just flip through a couple records, and then they walk in and they're just like, oh wow, there's everything. There's so much. But yeah, it's super exciting. It's like such a social thing, and I definitely can't ever say bad things about that, and just physical in general, like, you know, the store I feel is the original social network.
That's
record
right.
stores.
That's right. And as
One of them.
someone once said, a great place for a cheap date.
That's right. Yes.
It's also, you know, like buying all those physical products is like sort of your way. If you have friends over to your house or whatever, like you walk into someone's place and you're like, you get a snapshot of who they are. They like this music, they watch these movies. Like, I'm not going to like them, or I am going to like them. Friends, you know? So it's a good way to sort of demonstrate like your identity, or even find your identity.
Right.
Which is interesting too. The other thing that always comes to mind for me with physical products, and I talked earlier about passive listening and like how, you know, like you hear like a snippet of a song on iTunes or whatever, 15 seconds, and you decide, am I ever going to listen to this again or not? When you've committed to buying like a physical product, you're kind of like, I'm going to listen to this enough to give it a chance and let it grow on you. And I remember very vividly, there was a Blur record when I was a kid, and when I first heard it, I bought it because I bought it for the radio hit, you know, and I listened to it and I was like, what is the rest of this? This is all like electronic and weird and they're all experimental. I wasn't into it, but I bought it. I spent my hard-earned money on it, so I just kept listening. Turned out to be one of my favorite records. But nowadays, I would have gone right past it and been over it. But you know, now it's a record that I think of that like changed the way that I look at music and listen to music. So,
That's awesome.
I think there's some value to like sticking with it and really experiencing what the artist wanted you.
That's
to
right.
experience.
The entire piece of art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's a 15-second marketing clip. You know, like
Right.
how connected can you really get to that? So.
Right. And,
Totally.
and that is the beautiful thing about independent retail. Obviously, Park Ave being the preeminent source of indie music in, I would say, this entire part of Florida. I was at Target just this weekend, and sure enough, they had a vinyl section.
Yeah.
But of course, it was like the biggest and the baddest and, you know, the legacy artists, but you weren't going to discover somebody new there, right? Like, you already knew about them. She's too new. It was like Abbey Road. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, and you know what? If that gets people into collecting physical goods, like, I'm okay with it, you know, because that's only going to take them so far. And then, especially after just coming off of a really busy holiday season, I don't work the floor too much, but I have a great opportunity to do that then. And yeah, people are just overwhelmed. Like, they really think that there's like 24 records in print, and their daughter wants this one, and then when they walk in, they're just like, oh, there's all of this, and it's like, yeah, no, it's not just limited to like the little Urban Outfitters,
yeah.
or
Barnes and Noble.
Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bed Bath and Beyond. Could you imagine that? Well, you picked it up.
You need those. That's how I got into the Beatles. Was my mom bought me a shirt with them, and I was like, well, I know who these weird-looking hippies are on the shirt, but I'm gonna listen to them, and then I did. So. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. So that's even an extra level of physical, like the merch. And I guess that's true. If you think about it, you know, the fact that there's some artists that have these, in many ways, almost irresistible images that, you know, people are wearing, and they don't know what Dark Side of the Moon is. They just know, I've seen that 100 times, and maybe that brings them onto Spotify next time. They're like, oh, what? I know I've seen it. Maybe I have it. Who is this guy Eddie that I see on all these records looking so evil? Like, what do they sound like? So let's talk a little bit about the obvious. Let's talk about social media. So discovery in that space, have you found it, I would imagine, as an artist, to be, and I don't want to speak for you, one of the most important places other than live to find or to reach an audience?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been a growing, I guess, step-by-step process for it. You know, back when MySpace was a thing, you know, you'd have you just grow your circle little by little, and you can do that anywhere now, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But I think those three are like reigning supreme right now.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, like we've definitely seen quite a bit new faces at our shows, and they randomly say, "Well, we found you on even YouTube, even
Yeah,
we found you
totally.
on YouTube. We heard you guys like on Twitter. Somebody shared your stuff, and then here we are. Like, wow. Well, before we tried so hard through word of mouth, just like going downtown, passing out flyers, come to our show. And even then, we had a good response, as far as like bringing an audience into our shows. But social media has like opened the floodgates. Back in 2013, I was performing in this band called Stiletto Red. And thanks to social media, we've had people fly out from the UK to come see us perform at House of Blues. It was our first show as a band, but we had like this killer video out, like with social media, Facebook, friends of friends of friends sharing, and you never know who, come across it. But yeah, social media has definitely opened a lot more doors than what we had, 20 years ago.
Indeed, and in many ways, I think it's kind of like word of mouth, because you see something you really like and you share it,
Right.
and your friends see that, and maybe they've never heard of the band, and now they know about them and give them a shot.
Like filters in people's stories and stuff. I sometimes a friend of mine throws some up like that way. Like that'll get me to check them out if I hadn't before. It just kind of puts it back on your mind again. So yeah, very similar to word of mouth.
Indeed. Anybody see this is a totally different subject, but since we're talking about social media and discovery, anybody see the fire documentaries?
Oh, I watch both.
Yeah, I mean, that was
I
brilliant, right? I mean, the social media that they did with Instagram and what was it, like a bright
Scary.
orange?
Yeah, that bright orange tile.
It was
and
effective. It was just a
It
color.
motivated people to spend tons of money on absolutely nothing.
Wow. Well, that was the sun when they got there. The sun was there. The other stuff might have not been there, but the glow was there.
I swear, I think next time I watch it, we're gonna have a drinking game, and anytime someone says influencer, I'm gonna take a shot.
Oh boy.
That was the one.
We'll be drunk in 5 minutes.
Doesn't that kind of reinforce what we've been saying, which is like that's how you lure people in, but you've got to have something tangible.
Yeah, you've got to have a product.
Yeah, it's nice, a good life experience.
That's right.
And if you don't, then what good are all the how many impressions you get and everything? Because people their attention spans are like this now, so you got to lock
Totally.
in somehow.
Or be ridiculously good looking with hardly any clothes on. You'll grow your
Yes.
fan.
And
Yeah,
no,
there
and
you
no
go.
music. And no
Yeah.
music.
And no music.
Exactly. And the reality is that if you burn people there, then the negativity will spread just as fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the
Yeah,
other
very
piece of.
true.
It's cool to hate on you. And
Yeah,
you're
there you go.
Very true.
That is definitely true. You don't want to be a mean.
No.
So, and anything else in the social space? I mean, when you're promoting, are you using live a lot on Instagram, IGTV?
Actually, well, we don't use live too much. IGTV, it's that came up a few months ago, didn't it?
It's been almost a year.
Yeah. Well, we do a couple of things on there. Not so much live. We just do the regular posting. Keep a schedule. We have the whole week planned out. End of the week, and I have to sit and plan out everything. What time
Right.
each post going up.
Got it.
But yeah, we use that. We run instead of back in the day it was just like flyering. Now we take advantage of ads.
There you go.
Or reach people that that would rather sit home. And now you have to kind of get people, if you want them to come out to a show, you go through ads. You have to give them a reason to get off their couch and decide your show over Netflix.
Right, right.
Or like, do I really want to go to this party, or do I just want to watch Hulu?
Right,
So-
true.
Party, pay for drinks and all that stuff.
And
you
drive
can-
home.
Yeah,
You
so-
can sit on your couch and watch anything in the world.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think live, depending on how well the feed is, you could also introduce that to people that can't leave their home. They could be bedridden,
Right. That's
or
true.
they have a disability where they can't leave. Live has definitely helped, with bringing that to them. Hopefully, we'll have the production value where we can bring a good show to people
Right.
sitting at home.
Right. Now, you mentioned advertising, which is almost a must if you're serious on a lot of these platforms because, as we all know, Facebook is getting stingier and stingier in regard to what they show, even your followers. How effective, I mean, as consumers, how have you been, I don't know, influenced to, sorry, somebody has to take a shot, have you been affected by an ad and actually clicked and discovered something that has made sense, that's connected?
I'll be honest, for me, it doesn't work with music that much. I don't know why. I think it's because, like, I think I want to get my music from something either I discover on my own or that someone has recommended to me or something along those lines.
Right.
And probably I'm a victim of the short attention span, too. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this little clip. I've got scrolling to do, you know?
Right.
So, but it works with, like, clothes and stuff sometimes.
True,
when,
true.
That freaky thing where you think about an item of clothing and then it shows up in your feed. And
Well, yeah, you talk about it, and then all of a sudden, oh, look, there's an ad for it.
They are
Yikes.
watching.
For me, like, particularly with music, and it might just be a personal thing, but, like,
Right.
it's more word of mouth. That
Right.
works on me.
So, out of curiosity, when you're placing ads, are you, and obviously you could identify who you want to see the ads, you could target it. Are you using your audience that has already liked your page to be part of the folks that actually see those ads, or are you going beyond that? Because we know that they don't all see those ads.
Right. Well, it depends on what I'm posting.
Oh, those posts, excuse me.
Yeah, like, so if I want to run, it depends on, you just have to do your homework, do your research on it. You don't want to just dump your money in and just
Right.
blindly throw ads out there. For stuff that, that could relate more to our fans already, then we'll just limit it to just them and maybe their friends. Something new, like, hey, you want to check out our page, and we'll have like a cool video clip or something, and then target new people in different cities and whatnot. But yeah, you definitely want to, just really hone in on like what your listeners are doing. Spotify has a great feature for that. You can see where people are listening, and then you can use that information to run your ads as well.
Cool. So let's talk about something that seems so 2010-ish. Websites. Websites, blogs, et cetera, et cetera. I was thinking about the Tiny Desk concert series, and I've discovered artists that I've never heard of, and I'm on the NPR blog, and it's like, wow, who's this? And next you know, you're like, wow, that's a pretty cool group. Do you find that effective for discovery, either an online magazine, a blog, a specific website?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the interview questions when we interview new people, hires at Park Ave. Spoiler alert! But I always ask
They're gonna
people.
cheat.
I always ask people how they discover new music, and it comes back to like Pitchfork or an online blog, or then of course like Friends and that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I look on Pitchfork. I mean, I take it with a grain of salt, of course.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, things like that I think are definitely really helpful.
What do you think?
It's kind of the same thing for me.
Yeah.
There's a handful of the industry standards that I just check from time to time. I do a lot of when I'm in the mood to look for music, I go through Spotify usually, and if a friend of a friend is listening to it or something, I'll check it out. But yeah, like you said, take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know, I think I've been trained by the internet to be skeptical of everything, so I'm like, even if it's like, if it seems like a legit article, I'm like, who paid for this? How much did they pay to tell me to like this band? You know?
Right.
So,
Right.
like, I'm just like, I'll see. But yeah, it's there for sure.
Any other platforms online? I know someone mentioned, one of our producers that put together this particular topic said Reddit,
yeah.
places like Twitch.
Right. I think the thing about that makes it maybe a little more sort of reliable is that you get to see the actual conversation. Right? So that helps me.
And you
Right.
can see if it's organic. Like, this is
Yeah.
the hottest thing ever. You
Right.
have to, right.
yeah. And you can kind of read through what people are really saying about it, and why they like it, and that helps me make a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So you shared that you have a single that's getting some traction on radio. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's talk about radio. Let's talk about traditional radio, not the Pandoras. What do you folks think as far as discovery in 2019 on that mass media platform?
Well, radio's definitely important because you reach your blue collar worker, your regular day job, individuals that can afford to pay for satellite radio, or even just even have a car and drive. But people prefer to listen to FM radio just as in the background, and a tune might come up, and you're like, oh wait, turn it up. I've discovered artists that way. I still listen to FM radio. Yeah.
I listen to
sorry.
terrestrial radio. I do, yeah, every once in a while, just to see like what's current. We're an independent record store, and so everyone expects us to have the Maggie Rogers and the Animal Collectives, but I still want to hear that like Lovely the Band is getting played on XL 25 times a day, and like that might be something that we pass over in our buying, but it's out there and it's getting lots of impressions and people are looking for that stuff. Or I'll listen to like the old, like the classic rock stations.
Right. And you used the word earlier, passive. In many ways, radio is passive, but the cool thing is it's just kind of there, and you can kind of pop in and out as you choose to. That being said, I think the one type of radio that many times gets overlooked is college radio, let's say non-traditional radio, non-commercial radio, college community, public radio. That, in many ways, in my opinion, is one of those spaces that it's not that passive, because you have to tune in at a specific time, at a specific day, and the people that are like tuning in are diehards. So what do you folks think about that? Have you tapped a college radio and that kind of those kind of outlets?
We have in the past. It was a little difficult to get into being a little heavier band. They're a little more strict, I guess, the program directors for college. But yes, they have a specific time when the station is actually running, and before and after it is usually dead, just static, or they have something else going on. But if you want to hear a specific rock segment, it's only from 1 to 4 maybe, or 1 to 8. Then that they're only going to play rock music then and there at that time, even if it's on that station, unlike the FM counterpart, where it's constantly playing top 40 or rock all day, and sure enough, you're going to hear it on repeat some point in the day. But yeah, college radio's definitely been helpful as well, because you reach the diehard fan listeners. I don't think we've ever hit AM though, but I haven't listened to AM in years, unless there's an emergency. But.
And they give, obviously, the purpose of non-traditional is to give artists that are on the come up a shot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. No, and those, it's usually like younger people doing those shows who, have a lot of energy, or super excited to discover these things that no
and
one.
share it.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
I know the band that I was in, College Radio, was pretty friendly to us, and it was really helpful for tours when we were first just trying to get some people to come to shows, because the people that heard us on their college radio station would want to come out and meet us and talk to us, and then we had friends. So the next time we came to the city, it's like they come and they bring a couple of their friends, and so it's a nice way to get like a diehard fan that's actually going to come see you and take an interest in you and spread the word for you. So it's kind of like weaponizing these little pockets of people.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned like how you make these friends, and that's what you want.
Right.
Like if they're vibing off of your music that much that it came from you, they should be able to view you as that, as a friend. Maybe not as close, because kind of distant at first, but every time you come through that town, they're the ones like a couple years down the road bringing you food.
Yeah.
Like it's just they take you out to lunch, or take them out to lunch.
You want friends, but not like so close that they want you to get them in the show for free.
Yeah.
Right.
Or want free merch.
But they're still supportive.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing that builds initially.
Indeed. So let's go around real quick before we wrap up, and I love to get just a tidbit from everybody on the table, a gem to an artist that's listening right now about what you would recommend to reach and touch new audiences. So who wants to start? I'll start.
Definitely.
I'll start. And maybe this is the most obvious. Get in front of an audience as much as possible in the live space, once again, because that's the space that people will never forget. They'll forget a viral video, but they won't forget
totally.
how someone made them feel in that live environment.
I think, to me, the most important thing goes hand in hand with that, but it's like really know your specific audience, because we're so fractured right now that you should really know your world backwards and forwards and make an effort to go those routes instead of just being like, I need to get on the radio, I need to get on college radio. Well, why? You know, ask yourself the why, and then go that method, and then be able to back it up with the killer live show. You know, just like what I was saying before, like that. You know, find your bait, and then hook people live. So have it be a two-step process.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just piggybacking off of what you mentioned, of just like going viral. That is definitely true. Like, you get a viral video, it could have millions of views the first week or even in the first 3 days, but then after 6 months, like, no one's remembering. You know, they'll maybe one or two go back, but at first, initially, you know, when social media started growing, you know, that was our goal. Like, we got to be viral, we got to be this viral band. And then a couple of mentors of mine that are, you know, they've been in the business, you know, old school days, they're like, no, dude, you bring them in your live show, they'll never forget that, you know, regardless of how many times you've hit that show. But whether it's 5 people or 1,000, you perform like there's a million. So that's very important. You know, of course, have your great content, but then give them a reason to come see you. You know, there's certain elements you want to give them live that you won't have in a recording.
Being viral just by nature is kind of a flash in the pan anyways, you know, so it's like, it's meant to be disposable. So yeah, I like having that. The follow through, I think, is just as important, you know, like, because I know a lot of artists will put a lot of thought into how do they get attention at first, but what are you going to do to actually capitalize on that attention? What is your follow-up plan?
That's right.
Exactly,
Yeah. Great
yeah.
point. Yeah.
Well, I'd say, coming from record stores, don't forget physical media and physical spaces. And going back to the Vagabonds, you know, that was the very first time that they had played in store anywhere. And right, the response, I mean, it wasn't a packed house, but just in that half hour, they covered some serious ground. And so they were like, you know what, this is the first time we've ever done this, but we want to do more. Like, can you connect us with other stores? Can you connect us with other friends? And then I'm like, totally, I can give you 30 of the top independent record stores in the country. You should play this store, you should play this store, you should play this store. So yeah, the next time you come back, then guess what? There's going to be those 30 people plus another 30.
That's
like,
right.
there's definitely, people love to focus on social media and the intangible stuff, but you know, one of the great things about doing those in stores is that it's an avenue that bands can use to connect to fans real time.
That's
you know,
right.
and people do not forget that. Like, I mean, at the old store, we had Fall Out Boy play for the very first record on Fueled by Ramen, and this was before internet. There was no MySpace, there was no email. No one showed up. We had to open the front doors and hope that people would hear them playing. But you know what? They played. It was great, and it seems like it worked out for them. So
Yeah, looks like it.
they didn't give up, and they obviously built it into something a lot bigger. So
Indeed.
That is
And
a good point about, like, just social media, like how it goes away all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's been so much focus on building your numbers just to get a foot in the door anywhere that people forget why they're doing it in the first place. And if you don't take that ownership, my band was very much a victim of MySpace, where like that's where we built everything. But guess what? MySpace died like this, and it was like all of it was gone. So you know, we didn't have a good enough follow-up plan on like how to keep those people, you know, like where were they? We didn't even know how to get in touch with them.
engaged
Yeah.
and excited, and I
That'd be
mean,
awesome.
like, some of the bands, we've had a few bands play a couple times over, and now the minute the band announces a tour date in Orlando, I get a million messages, a million phone calls. Fans are like, are they gonna play Park Ave? Are they gonna? I'm like, oh, Frank Turner's played Park Ave 4 times now. Like, I really feel bad asking him, but you know, it just is that connection. Like, people totally connect the band with the store now because they had that great experience that they couldn't get at a venue. You know, they couldn't do listening to that album on Spotify, but now we're all connected, and they want more of it every time that band is in town, and it's awesome. Like, I've seen things like totally build where I thought, you know, this band, this could work out, it couldn't, but with a little bit of hard work there and just really making that connection,
There
it's
you
so
go.
important.
There you go. And like back to the idea of something being fleeting, or maybe someone not having the what's the word? I'm gonna forget the word that we were
Passive.
passive. Back to the idea of passive. If you go to a record store, like that's the real deal. That's somebody that's looking to plunk down real cold hard cash or plastic on music. They are vested in music. If you're on Instagram flipping, I mean, you got their attention for a fraction of a second, and there's really no investment necessarily.
Yeah. And they're looking for their people too. You know, there is a tribal aspect to it too. Like
True.
Similar-minded friends and everything to go to shows with and have drinks with.
Yeah.
And all that
True,
stuff too.
true.
You know, so yeah.
I know I have people show up alone, and I was like, well, you have something in common with
Yeah.
everybody here.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be great. And yeah, now I've seen like friend groups, and even with that last in-store, I made friends with some girls that randomly showed up because
Yeah.
they were a ton of fun and really excited about it. And then really excited about the vibe of the store. And, you know, they're like, this is totally random. Like, we were just killing time. And
Right.
now look what happened.
There you go.
They all bought records.
Awesome. It's contagious. So on that note, we will see you in your local friendly neighborhood record store. But before that, we're going to have a live performance from this gentleman right here and his band, Devil's Envy. Check this out. Awesome. All right.
Rolling. Josh, can you go get another clap in for us?
Yep.
Go ahead. Thank you. Stop recording.
Sync. Can I trouble the crew to come up and take a picture with the table?